Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Just wanted to let you know that we're going to go ahead and get started in about a minute, let some other people continue to join. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started as people continue to join here. My name is Lindsay. I'm the support manager and applications engineer here at Noraxon, and I'm going to be presenting today's webinar on product applications for gait and running applications in our Myo research software. So this is something a little bit new that we're going to be doing. We're going to be presenting more of these distributor technical webinars a couple times a year. So if you do have any suggestions or feedback for future topics, feel free to let us know by sending an email to any of us or info@noraxon.com. Now, just to get started with a couple of housekeeping topics before we get into our presentation here, I did want to provide an overview of our new website. So let me go ahead and get that started here. I have to reshare. So as hopefully most of you are aware, we recently modified our website, had a few big changes. So hopefully you all have gotten a chance to explore the new version of the website and how to navigate to all the product pages, for example. But from a product support standpoint, I wanted to introduce our new knowledge base page. So this is something that we have been really excited about because the knowledge base plugin that we're using is going to allow us to continue to populate more educational and support related articles for you to review and for you to send to your customers when they need support on our products. So what's really nice about this knowledge base page, which you can navigate to from the support and learn menu here, is that you can search the knowledge base. So for example, if you know what your topic is, let's say jump analysis, you can start typing that into the search bar here, and you can review the list that appears, anything from how-to videos for various jump analysis topics, down to force plate getting started guides, and you can press enter to review all of those results in case you didn't find what you were looking in that base page there. The knowledge base is also organized by different help topics. Most of them are product related. So for example, you can search by EMG related topics or 3D motion capture related topics. I'll go ahead and navigate to 3D motion capture just so you can see all of the resources we have here. We have a number of different resources in PDF and in video format, just to make sure that we cover all of our bases in terms of being able to present the information on how to use certain aspects of the software completely. The other thing I wanted to point out is the Getting Started Guides section. We've created these Getting Started guides for all of our products, which provide information on how to set up your equipment, how to set it up in the software, and how to perform basic measurements with that equipment. So just as an example here, I will go ahead and open up our core EMG Getting Started guide. And you can see it starts by guiding you to ensure your PC meets our specifications. It gives you an intro to EMG video. And then scrolling down gives more information on system unboxing and setup. So we have all of these embedded videos for various parts of the process for new customers that can guide them through that setup process, all the way to learning more about different features about that product. So for example, biofeedback training with EMG and how to use the signal processing tools. So hopefully you all get a chance to review the knowledge base in the future. And if you have any questions or any feedback on the knowledge base, don't hesitate to reach out. We are really excited to continue to provide more articles here in the knowledge base to make sure that you have all the information you need in order to support your customers with these products. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get that presentation started again. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking today about different product applications for gait and running analysis in the MR software. So, I'm not able to navigate to the next slide for some reason. Give me a second. All right, so first, a little product overview of the different products we have available for gait and running analysis in the software. So we have kinematics for, we're able to record kinematics using IMUs for 3D kinematics. We're also able to use 2D kinematics for with our markerless video analysis that's newly available within MR4. We have insoles, we have pressure instrumented treadmills and pressure walkways, and we have the ability to combine gait and running analysis with EMG. So the caveat of using EMG here is that the EMG data must be combined with some other product for contact detection purposes in order to use our reports for gait analysis. And basically all of these other products, including the IMUs, the 2D kinematics, so markerless tracking, the insoles and pressure instrumented treadmills, are able to do that contact detection. So all of our reports are compatible with those different products. So moving on to the report and feature overview for our products here, we have all of our gait and running tools available, including the various reports we have. We have reports that can be done in Myo Video, which would be purely based on 2D video analysis. We have Myo Motion reports. So that would be reports based on the contact detection provided by our 3D IMU system. We have Myo pressure reports, which use the pressure instrumented data from a treadmill or pressure walkway from zebras. We have insole reports, which use our Ultium insoles for contact detection. These insole reports are available under Myo Motion or Myo Muscle because those insoles, our Ultium insoles, are considered an accessory for the Ultium system, not a pressure device. And then other features we can use for gait and running analysis include video playback in the software and biofeedback training. So biofeedback training can be used in order to provide feedback for cadence. We can provide feedback for the amount of trunk lean if you're trying to work on a specific trunk lean for running analysis with the 3D IMU system. We can provide biofeedback for EMG, and you could even use the biofeedback to ensure that you're stepping in the right places on the treadmill, not crossing over too much when you use the pressure instrumented treadmills. And then video playback is just playing back the videos in the MR software so that you can see all of those tools working together to provide the results. And on the left side of our slide here, we just have a list of all of the default reports included in our software. So I've listed all of the default report templates we have available under Myo Video. For example, we have new markerless point of interest gait and running reports, as well as the POWERS running assessment, which requires an additional purchase. We have our Myo Motion reports. So that would be the Myo Motion gait and running reports and insole gait and running reports. And then we have a variety of Myo pressure reports as well. So gait reports, we have different versions of gait reports that provide modifications on various report elements available. So for example, the Gait 3 zones report provides that 3 zones element as well. I will dive in more into the different elements available with these reports next, and as we walk through the software together. So a big topic that I want to touch on today, especially as we get into the software, is how to customize reports using all of the elements available for gait and running analysis. And so before we get into that, I wanted to give a little overview of all of the different report elements that are available. So this slide purely goes over the myopressure and insole elements. So as you can see, we have the elements that provide more qualitative data. For example, the average and maximum pressure prints and the center of pressure diagram. These elements are available only with the pressure platforms and the insoles. But I will mention as a caveat that with our Ultium insoles, those are not going to provide high quality pressure and force data. As a reminder, that product is used as an accessory to an Ultium system and only has 8 zones of force sensors on board the insoles. So the data provided is a body weight normalized percentage of the general forces produced when you step on the insole for each zone. And so as an effect, because we only have 8 zones on each insole, the center of pressure diagram shown for the Ultium insole, while available, is at a lower resolution because we can only map between those 8 zones at once. While if you have a pressure instrumented treadmill or a pressure walkway or even the Metalogic insoles, you get much higher quality information because you have sensors covering the entirety of the foot. So just keep that in mind. While those above two elements are available for the Ultium insoles, it's not going to be providing pressure or force data. It's just going to be providing that body weight normalized data. And then moving on to the bottom two elements, we have zone analysis. This can be used for pressure distribution systems only. So that would be Zebra's products or the Metalogic insoles. And what's nice is that this zone analysis has multiple representations. So as you can see, we have the curves here, which are basically a mapping of the contacts for each part of the foot that aligns with the picture on the right, showing how the foot is broken down into different zones. So you can see the contact timing and the contact area for the heel versus the midfoot versus the forefoot here. And this zone analysis can additionally be broken down into 7 zones or even 10 zones and can be used for both gait and running analysis. And then lastly, we have our center of pressure parameters, which describe the pressure distribution center of pressure lines up above. So the length of the gait line basically describes the length of the individual average lines here you see on each foot. The single support line is the length of the gait line, essentially just during the single support phase of the gait cycle. And then we have some anterior, posterior position and lateral symmetry parameters that describe the crossover point of this butterfly diagram or cyclogram. So this can give you an indication of symmetry between sides, or if you're shifted anterior or posterior, it could give you a sense of whether your center of mass is too far shifted forward or too far shifted back. So we'll review these elements as part of our default reports shortly as well. Next, we have all of the other elements available for report customization with the gait and running analysis available in our software. And just as a reminder, we do have more elements than this that can be used for gait and running purposes. These are just the most common ones. So for example, we have at the top here, gait spatial parameters. So your step length, your stride length, velocity, etc. And just to remind everyone, these gait spatial parameters are only available using IMUs or using a pressure platform. If insoles are used, for example, we don't know the stride length or step length between each foot because we don't have a model to apply it to or a known distance that we're measuring on the pressure platform. Next, moving to the right, we have average curves and statistics. So basically, we average all phases of the stance and swing cycle. This is essentially the stance phase and the swing phase. And we can plot any signals that are collected, including EMG, force or pressure, and including the kinematics data as a part of this plot. And then we could also provide some statistics for it within each of these zones. So you can get a representation of the symmetry between sides if you overlay the left and the right. If you did a comparison report between 2 different recordings, you can also just see exactly what those differences were in the signal throughout the entire gait cycle. Moving to the middle left here, we have phase or marker-based point of interest analysis. This element is very commonly used in our markerless point of interest reports, where we can look at the different phases or points of interest during the gait cycle. For example, initial contact is shown here, and we're showing an image of what the subject looks like at initial contact on the left and the right, along with the 2D drawings shown over subject here. You can also review the data from other signals associated with that point of interest. For example, the average EMG signal at initial contact, if the EMG is involved. And then to the right, we have a gait parameter trend diagram that can be included for phase, spatial, and temporal parameters. This element is really interesting because it provides all of the parameters that are available in the gait spatial parameters and the gait phase and temporal parameters, but it provides them step by step. So for example, in this recording, we had about 15 steps or so, and we're looking at the step length for each step individually. So you can see how that trends as someone walks through a long period of time, and also just observe the variability between steps here. Bottom left, we have gait phase and temporal parameters. These are available regardless of the product that's used. So the percentage of time spent in the stance phase, swing phase, or even the duration in milliseconds. And then temporal parameters such as cadence, step time, etc., are available as well. And then the last element that can be interesting to use for gait analysis is this angle coordination plot. This report element is actually available as its own report, the angle coordination report, in the My Own Motion section. But it can be very useful for gait analysis because it is a repetitive analysis. And you could see roughly how the hip versus knee flexion angles are correlated with each other, or even choose other angles to compare as well. So it's kind of a nice diagram showing how those are coordinated both in position and velocity. The colors in this diagram actually are associated with velocity. So you can see the dark red here where the hip and knee are moving the most rapidly around when the hip is at 0 degrees of flexion. So right around mid stance maybe, or during the swing phase, and the knee is around 60 degrees of knee flexion. And you could track how that changes throughout the gait cycle. So now that we've done our little review of the different elements here, I want to pull up our software and share with you some different ways you can utilize these elements within different reports and create your own customizations. And by the way, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to write them in the chat or in the designated questions panel, and we'll go ahead and address those questions at the end. We also have Zach monitoring those questions, and he may be able to answer some of them as well during the session. So let me reshare my screen here. All right. So hopefully this looks familiar to everyone who's joined. This is the home screen of our MR4 software. I'm not going to spend too much time here in the home screen. I'm going to navigate directly to the database. But just as a reminder of the workflow through the protocol aspect of the software, anytime I leave the home screen, I'm going to be running a protocol. So for example, I have my free capture protocol selected here under my free capture application. And if I go to my properties, I can see that I have not assigned a report to this protocol. Now, if I had assigned a report to this protocol by clicking this checkbox and choosing from the list, I can choose any of them essentially. It means that I would be able to select that report automatically whenever I'm opening up a recording from the database. So because I want to show you different reports, I'm not selecting this. but having this report included as part of your protocol can be very useful for your customers that do the same analysis over and over again as a part of the same protocol. So in the application of Gait and running analysis, maybe your customers have clients come in and they do running analysis on a daily or weekly basis. It would make sense for them to attach a report to this protocol so they have one less selection period where they have to pick the report they want to run. It will just automatically run it. So I will go ahead and keep that deselected and navigate to the database here. And you can see in our little breadcrumb bar that we have entered that free capture protocol. So now, because I didn't have a report selected, it's going to allow me to choose from that report selection menu or list of reports that I've already run before. In addition, I have a few recordings in my database here that I've filtered by to review today. I can actually exit out this tag filter here, and I'll show you really quickly the tag filtering, just because some of you may not have explored that quite as much yet. So for example, in my tags option on the right, I have the filter selection, and I had automatically, or I had already tagged certain recordings as Gait and running analysis, and I can go ahead and organize by Gait and running analysis here. So I wanted to give you an overview of some new demo records we have using different products so that you can understand how all of them are used in the context of these Gait and running reports. So by the way, if any of you are interested in any of these demo records to have for sales demo purposes, I'm more than happy to send them to you. Just let them know if you'd like us to send them over. So the first of all, I'd like to run through a few recordings that are just one product so that we can see what that default report looks like. So for example, I'm going to pull up our 2D running analysis report here. I'll play this back just so you can get a sense of what's going on in this recording. This is our demo record for 2D running analysis. So you can see we have video capture running in both directions with the subject running forward on the treadmill and then flipping the belt into reverse and running in the opposite direction to capture the sagittal plane kinematics on the right side as well. And so the report we have built out for this type of recording using the 2D markerless is our 2D markerless running point of interest report. And because I've already created this 2D markerless point of interest report for this recording in the past, it appears as a selection for me to review here. So I'm just going to click on this and pull up the report for us all to look at together and show you what this report looks like. So this report includes the running phase definition diagram. It also has various points of interest at initial contact, mid stance, terminal stance, initial swing during the swing phase, mid swing, and then terminal swing. And so all of these are those point of interest elements we reviewed previously. And to give you some insight as to how these are created or modified, if I double click on just one of these elements, so as a quick review here, the element is highlighted with this dotted box, I can open up the settings for this element and I can modify it if I wanted to. So I had basically defined this point of interest by one of the stance or swing phases selected, and I chose to look at 0% of stance phase, so the very beginning of stance, which we named manually initial contact, and then restricted the activity selection to the left side here. All of these settings can be modified, so you can choose whatever point of interest you are interested in, including in your report. So for example, if I wanted to change this to mid stance, I would simply say I want to look at 50% of the stance phase. And I would go ahead and change that name to mid stance and press OK. And now we can see that image change to show us mid stance on the left side. So very easy to modify those. Right above this, this is just a label for a box containing these initial contact elements. So if I double click on this, you can see this is just a text box that can be modified as well to change the name of that contact. So scrolling down further into the report here, past those points of interest, we also have our phase and timing parameter tables here. So these are one of those report elements that can be included in any report. And I can go ahead and double click on this, and we can see all of the different phase parameters we have available here. So although we're only showing a smaller selection, we can also show the running phase parameter durations in milliseconds, or we can show some additional parameters if we're interested, for example, total flight. Just so you all are aware, all of these parameters are shown, whether the recording is of gait or of running, but some of these phases only appear for gait or running. As an example, total flight is something that will only occur during running because there are no instances where there's a flight phase during gait. So if you chose this for gait analysis, you would always see a number 0 for the flight phase. So it might be necessary to create separate reports for your gait versus running analysis because those parameters are different. If I wanted to save these changes, I could go ahead and click OK, and it added my total flight percentage here to that table. I could also review the running timing parameters, and you can see that this is actually the same exact report element. We only changed the type to show the spatial or the temporal parameters instead of the phase parameters. If I modified this to show my spatial parameters, I'll just leave all of these selected, you'll see that all of these are 0. This is because we're only using the 2D marker-based tracking here, or markerless tracking. We are not using an IMU system or a pressure system, which is what is necessary to populate these spatial parameters. So I'll go ahead and change that back to temporal here. And then further down into the report, we have our left versus right kinematics. So we're just plotting the left hip flexion signal versus the right hip flexion signal. We have our nice little diagrams showing how that signal is defined throughout the period phases. And we can just see how those relate to each other. And from here, of course, we can go into the settings of this diagram again, and we can make some modifications. So some common customizations I see for this element are to restrict calculations to a certain period phase. So for example, if you're really only interested in what's going on during stance phase, we can modify that there and plot just the stance phase signals. We can also navigate to our diagram statistics area, and we can provide some statistics for this left versus right kinematics plot. So let's say we want to look at the maximum angle for all of these channels. All I did was insert this maximum element. I could also choose how many decimals I want to add here and click OK. And now we're looking at the maximum angle within the stance phase. So I can add as many statistics as I want to this. We have multiple calculations available for amplitude, slope and variability, or even timing related parameters as well. And then in the output calculations, this is where you can specify how you want to visualize your results. So right now we're plotting the graph and the statistics together. If I wanted to show only the statistics, I can choose a statistics histogram or a statistics table. So in that case, it's only going to be showing us that maximum statistics for the angles that we had selected here. So lots of different customization options for this element that will allow you to create different visualizations depending on what your interests are, what your customers' interests are. So I'll go ahead and just change this back to my graph here. And we can move on to a different report. So I'm going to go back to the database. I won't save any changes I made to the report layout because I did not make any changes I want to save. And I will move to a slightly different report template here. So I'm going to choose our Gait demo record, which is included in the software automatically. And this has a number of different results in it. So we have our pressure platform collecting pressure data. We have our lower body motion capture system, and we also have our core EMG providing us with details on the tibialis anterior activation and medial gastrocnemius activation on the left and the right sides. So if I want to create a report for this recording, I have many options available. I can run a myomotion report. I can run a myopressure report. So I'll go ahead and start with just one of these. I'll start with our myomotion gait report. And you can see that all of the parameters in this report with, aside from the gait spatial parameters, are also available for that 2D markerless point of interest report we looked at together. So for example, we're plotting the gait phase parameters, we have some spatial parameters available, and we have the temporal parameters. And then we have this average curves plot, which is showing us the EMG activation, the angle, coordination over the stance and swing phase. And we can also show the pressure and force coordination over the stance and the swing phase. And by the way, just so you all are aware, the signals that are included in this diagram here can be chosen in two ways. So if I were to go back one step to reanalyze this report, I can click on Reanalyze Channels and Intervals. That's going to bring me to this period definition stage where I can define the part of the analysis I want to look at. So I can reset periods in this area by highlighting and clicking set. If I click anywhere so that nothing is highlighted, it'll reset all of my periods here. And then when I hit next, it's going to bring me to that channel selection. So you can see that I already modified this channel selection to show only my angle and my EMG data. So if I wanted to add average curves for the force and the pressure data, I would have to add those back into my selection result. And so I'm selecting them into type, but because I have another filter below type, I have to go to name and also select force and max pressure so that those appear in the list here, and hit next. So it is quite easy to go back to those period definition stages by clicking reanalyze when you've already run a report, just so you can make those short modifications. And as I scroll down here, you can see the force and the maximum pressure curves are now added to our curve analysis plots here. And if I double click on this element, this is the second way you can modify which signals are included in the report. We can actually tell it to restrict calculations to specific selected channels. So for example, if I wanted to show only the EMG data under this curve analysis, I would select type and EMG. It would show me that selection result, and I can press OK. And now only those EMG signals would be shown in this element, regardless of whichever ones I selected from the channels and intervals selection when I was running the report. This is an element that's not usually included as a default. I must have added it while I was editing the report earlier, but this is that gait parameter trend diagram. This element is actually not included in any default reports. So let me go ahead and show you how to add that. And I will go ahead and just delete it first so that we can find it together. So let's go ahead and delete. And I'm going to, by the way, to edit the layout of the report, you would just choose edit from layout here. And then to add a new element, what I typically do is I'll double click to insert an element into the bottom of the report. And so I can double click here, and that gait parameter trend diagram is located under specific analysis. When we scroll down here, we can see the gait parameter trend element. You can see all of the other elements here as well, including the pressure zones, the gait footprint, etc. But this is where we could add that parameter trend diagram to look at the parameter for each step. And so if I wanted to look at step length for each step, I can go ahead and add that. If I wanted to look at the velocity change for each step, I could add that as well. I could add as many parameters as I want under the spatial and temporal phases here, and then press OK. You'll notice that this element is just kind of left floating here in the software here. There's no label. And so the other thing that I like to be able to do here for customization purposes is be able to add a label to that diagram in the form of a box or just a text label. And you can see that this element here, this is a box. So gait time parameters is just a text box containing this element. So I'll go ahead and do the same. So I'll add a new element to the bottom as a layout and decoration. And I will call this parameter trend. I can modify the size if I want, or the color. Click OK, and now I have this box. And so now, because I want to move this element around, I can click on the element here and drag it to my shelf. And now I can drag it into this box called parameter trend. And then if I wanted to move this element to a different position in the report entirely, I can drag the entire box onto the shelf, and I can drag it anywhere I'd like. It'll be dropped exactly where you see this orange line here. So right below gait time parameters is where I want that parameter trend plot here. So using the shelf is a really nice way to move elements around in the report, or also make copies of elements. You can make a copy of the element onto the shelf by holding down the Control key on your keyboard and dragging it over. So now you can see that parameter trend diagram is still in the report, but it's also located on the shelf. And I can drag it to another position and even make modifications to it to change it into something else at this point. So this is a customization process that I find that I use very often when I'm assisting customers with customizing reports. And it can especially be used for these gait reports where maybe the template that you're using doesn't include all of the elements you would possibly want in that report. So I'll show you an example of that shortly here. Let's go back to the database. And again, I won't save my changes to my layout here. And I want to pull up another gait parameter element or another gait report for this. And this is one of the myopressure reports. So you can see this contains pressure prints, center of pressure diagram, center of pressure parameters, etc., as well as all of those gait, spatial, phase, and temporal parameters and average curves we talked about. So now you can see that most of these reports are very, very similar to each other. Some of the different reports just contain different elements based on what products are available. And scrolling all the way down to the bottom is where we have those zone elements as well. So now I want to run through a quick customization exercise here where we look at a recording that contains multiple of these different products where we want to look at a specific report layout. So I'm going to go back to the database here and pull up one of our 2D markerless and pressure running analysis demo records. And this is including video-based kinematics, so the 2D markerless. We're also looking at the pressure data from the pressure platform, and we have some EMG data here. So now we can see we're in this interesting area where we have two different default report templates we can utilize. We have our markerless running point of interest report, and we also have our pressure distribution reports. So if I just pick the report I want from the report here, I can go ahead and choose my myopressure running report, and it's going to add all of the steps I want to look at. I'll go ahead and just throw everything into the report here, and we have our myopressure running report. And so now we have this report that gives us our phase diagram parameters, our spatial and our temporal parameters, our average curves, and our pressure distribution data up front. But what if I want to view this report with those point of interest elements as well? So if I wanted to select another report, maybe I also like some of the report elements available within my markerless point of interest running report, which is default to our system. So I'll go ahead and track this video here and create the report. And let's say I really like some of these elements. So what's something really simple that you can do here is you can actually use the report shelf to drag some of the elements in this report onto that shelf and then use them in another report. So let's say, as an example, I want to use this report as a template and I want to add my pressure distribution data to this report. I can go back to the pressure report that I had chosen, the myopressure running report. I'll go into my report shelf in the edit layout. I'll delete whatever is on my shelf here for now. And I can actually take these elements and copy them out of this report. So I can include them in my other report that I like. So you can see as I click around here that all of these elements that I click on get highlighted with this dotted box. You should be careful with dragging these into the report because it's only going to copy that single element. If you do that, I'll go ahead and delete it. And then if you click, for example, in this splitter, now it's only going to copy these two things. Just as an example, this is more or less what that would look like, just the two prints here. So what I actually want to do, whoops, take that out, and sometimes you have to be pretty careful with where exactly you click and drag this out so to make sure you're clicking on the right thing. But as you can see, if I click on pressure prints here, this whole page is essentially one box containing all of my qualitative elements that I want to use here. So I'm going to actually hold down my control key to drag this whole thing onto my shelf. And then I'm going to go back and select my myopressure markerless, or sorry, myovideo markerless running point of interest report. And because I have that pressure data in this report as well, I can go ahead and grab that from the shelf that I copied over and put this into my report. So now I've created a custom report that shows me that 2D markerless point of interest element and includes those myopressure elements. And so this is something that is a really handy thing to know how to do because you might like how some default report elements present some of these different features within the report. And if I like what I see here, I can go ahead and save this as a new template. So markerless point of interest running with pressure. I'll go ahead and rename it. And then I can go ahead and go to save as new under layout. And I can change this report as well. And so now, whenever I want to run this report again, it's going to appear as an option in my reports list and can be used over and over again. So that rounds up pretty much the main topics I wanted to discuss with you guys today in terms of gait and running analysis, report elements, and report customization. At this point, we can go ahead and open it up for questions. So let me go ahead and see if we have any in the chat. Looks like no questions so far. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat for now. In the meantime, since we have another couple of minutes, I'll continue to show some other options for customization here. Something that I really like doing is copying existing versions of report elements so that I can modify them slightly to display something different. A good example of this is the average curves element at the bottom of the report here. So we can see this is showing the left versus right kinematics. If I double click on it, you can see that we're showing just our sagittal plane kinematic angles here. So what if I want to present this same analysis, but I want to show EMG, and I also want to show force and pressure on my average curves? I can go ahead and copy this entire element, including the box, labeling it to the shelf by holding down the control key and dragging it over, put it back here, and I can make an exact copy of this element that contains just the EMG, for example. So I can relabel this EMG activation and press OK. And then I can modify the report element by double clicking, and I can change the type here to EMG. And because, like I said previously, there are two ways to include signals in this report, it looks like I didn't include the EMG signals. So I can actually go back to my reanalyze phase, hit next, whoops, hit select channels. And now you can see I had actually not included any EMG or force and pressure data. So I'll go ahead and add them to the selection result here so we can use them in the report. And so now I can go back down to the bottom, double click on this, and now my EMG data will be available to add. And I can also include specific EMG signals as well. I could do the same thing with my force versus pressure. So I'll go back to my shelf. I'll make a copy of this element again, and I can change this to include force and pressure data, and also modify this as well. So I like knowing how to use the report features to present these different elements, especially for gait analysis, where you might want to present some of the different parameters available in a slightly different way. So this is a really nice way to make those modifications easily. And then again, if I want to save this report, I don't have to save it as a new template. I can just simply navigate anywhere else in the software and click View. Say I want to save changes to my report layout, and then press OK. And then the report that I created here, markerless point of interest running with pressure, is going to be available from this list. And sort of a last step in the process here for any of your customers using MR4 that may want to utilize that custom report over and over again is we can go back to our home page and modify our protocol. So I can go ahead and I'll go ahead and save changes here to my record. I can create or modify a Gait protocol that we already have. For example, if I wanted to say this was my pressure running protocol, I could, and I can just simply modify the properties and show the, I think it was under Myo video, markerless point of interest running and pressure. So now if I create any new recordings under this protocol, or even navigate to the database under this protocol, I can go ahead and open that recording, and this will be the main report that appears. This list does appear if you have created multiple reports for the same record, but if you had not created any reports yet, then this report would automatically just start running here. And looks like, oh, I guess it looks like the chat might have been disabled, but we have some questions in the open question and answer here. So we have one question from Alistair. A comment that the shelf feature is a great tool for customization. So it's great to hear you enjoyed that. The question is, does the EMG muscle map graphic automatically appear with the graph? Okay, good question. So I'll go ahead and run back into this report here and show you that graphic. So I think, Alistair, you were talking about this graphic shown next to the EMG activation. This is actually not automatic for many different reports or for the average period element in general. It's actually a checkbox in the output options. So I chose to show channel specific illustrations here. And if I uncheck that box, that disappears. Basically, if we have a channel specific illustration available for that particular channel, then it'll be shown automatically here. And it looks like I'm not seeing any other questions here. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. As a reminder, if you have any questions or feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@noraxon.com, or for support questions, please reach out to us via support@noraxon.com. And if you have any other feedback or suggestions for future technical sessions, please feel free to send us that feedback as well. We would love to hear that feedback and make sure that we can provide you with all of the technical training you need to feel confident providing pre-sales demos to your customers, and also providing that initial support to help them along with their software. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. I hope all of you have a great day or evening, depending on wherever you are in the world. And we will see you next time.